My name is Aaron, and this is the reason I don't work night shifts anymore, or go anywhere near storerooms after midnight. I've never told this publicly before, not like this, because once you understand what I saw, you can't unknow it. 2 years ago, I worked at a grocery store just outside Columbus, Ohio. Closing shift. Just me and my manager, Lisa. And one rule that nobody officially explained. Never enter the storeroom after 11:30 p.m. At first, I thought it was just superstition. An old building, weird noises, whatever. Until I broke it. It was 11:40 p.m. A man came in carrying a crying baby, asking for formula. Lisa checked inventory. "We have it," she said, then stopped. She looked at the clock, 11:41. Then she turned to me and said, "Tell him we're out." I remember thinking how messed up that was. So I said I'd grab it. She tried to stop me, actually stepped in front of me. "Don't go in there," she said. That was the only time I ever saw her genuinely scared. I went anyway. The moment I stepped into the storeroom, I felt it. Not fear, not yet, just wrong, like walking into a place where something had been waiting for a long time. The air was colder, still, heavy, and the silence, it wasn't normal silence, and it felt like sound didn't belong there. I walked toward the back aisle. That's when the outside noise disappeared completely. No hum, no movement, nothing. Then I heard it, a dragging sound, behind me. At first I thought it was just a box shifting, until it followed me. I grabbed the formula, turned around, and that's when reality started to break. The aisle was longer, not by a little, by a lot. The shelves stretched further than they should have. The light didn't reach the end anymore, and that's when I understood something important. I wasn't in the same room anymore. Then it spoke. "Hey." It sounded exactly like Lisa. "Can you help me?" If you've never heard something perfectly mimic a human voice, you won't understand how convincing it is. It wasn't almost her voice, it was her voice. But there was a delay, like it had to think before responding, like it was copying, not speaking. That's when I remembered something Rick once said jokingly. Some places don't echo sound, they keep it. I didn't respond. Then it tried again, closer. "Come here." And this time, it moved. I saw it between the shelves, tall, too tall. Its limbs weren't right, too long, too loose, like it didn't understand how a human body is supposed to be structured. The worst part wasn't how it looked. It was how it acted. It wasn't chasing me. It was learning me. The way I spoke, the way I reacted, the way I moved. That dragging sound, yeah, that was it adjusting itself, trying to match what it had seen. When the lights flickered, I saw its face clearly. It was smiling, but not like a person smiles, more like it had seen a smile before and was trying to recreate it from memory. That's when I ran. And this is the part that matters most, because this is what it actually does. The storeroom isn't just a room. After a certain time, it becomes a closed space. They found Lisa, still inside, standing in the back aisle, smiling. That's when everything clicked. The thing I saw that night, it didn't just copy voices, it replaces people, but it can't do it instantly. It needs time, observation, exposure, and I gave it exactly what it needed, because here's the part I haven't told anyone before. The reason I know what it is, the reason I know how it works, is because a week after I quit, I went back, not inside. I just stood outside the store, watching through the glass. The place was closed, lights off, empty, except it wasn't. I saw someone inside, stocking shelves, moving slowly, dragging slightly. It took me a second to recognize who it was, because it looked like me. Same height, same build, same face, but the way it moved was wrong, like it was still learning, still adjusting, still becoming. And that's when I understood the truth. I didn't escape that night. I just left early, before it finished copying me, and now it doesn't need the storeroom anymore, because it already knows how to get out. I'm not someone who believes in ghosts, demons, or anything supernatural. I'm a pretty logical person. But something happened to me 2 years ago, and honestly, I'm not sure I want to. It started when my wife and I moved into a rental house just outside a small town in Missouri. The place was older, probably built in the late 70s, but it was cheap and quiet. We had just had our first child, so we needed space. The house had 3 bedrooms. One for us, one for the baby, and the third we used as a guest room. For the first couple weeks, everything was normal. Then I started noticing something strange. Every morning when I walked past the guest room, the door would be slightly open. Now I'm someone who always closes doors all the way. I remember doing it every night before going to bed. But every morning, the door would be cracked open just a little. At first I blamed air pressure or maybe the AC kicking on. But then one night something happened that made me start paying closer attention. It was around 2:30 in the morning when I woke up to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Slow, quiet, but definitely footsteps. I assumed it was my wife getting up to check on the baby. But when I rolled over, she was still asleep next to me. I sat up and listened. The footsteps stopped right outside our bedroom door. Then I heard the guest room door creak open. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. When I stepped into the hallway, everything looked normal. The baby was asleep. The guest room door was slightly open. Just like every morning, I checked inside. Nothing. Empty bed, empty closet, empty room. I convinced myself I must have been half asleep and imagined it. But after that night, things kept getting weirder. Objects started moving, nothing dramatic, just small things. A chair slightly pulled out, a drawer left open. The guest room window unlocked. My wife blamed me for forgetting things, but I knew I wasn't. One night, about a month after we moved in, I decided to stay up late in the living room watching TV. Around 1 a.m., I heard the guest room door open again. Slowly. I muted the TV. Then I heard something that made my stomach drop. Breathing, not loud, just slow breathing, like someone standing in the hallway. I slowly stood up and grabbed the baseball bat we kept near the couch. Then I walked toward the hallway. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. The hallway was dark except for the light from the living room behind me. The guest room door was wide open. I stepped closer, and that's when I noticed something. The closet door inside the guest room was moving, just slightly, like someone inside had just bumped it. My heart started racing. I tightened my grip on the bat and walked into the room. "Who's there?" I said louder. The closet door creaked open a few inches, then it stopped. I stood there for a few seconds, listening. Silence. Finally, I stepped forward and pulled the closet door open. Inside, there were only some empty hangers and a few storage boxes. Nothing else. I actually laughed a little, trying to calm myself down, but as I turned to leave the room, I froze, because the hallway light was now off, and I definitely hadn't turned it off. I stepped into the hallway. "Sarah?" I called to my wife. No answer. That's when I noticed something at the end of the hallway. The bathroom door was closed, but the light underneath it was on. I walked slowly toward it. Just as I reached the door, the light shut off. I opened the door quickly. The bathroom was empty, No one inside. I checked the entire house after that. Every room, every closet, every window and door. Everything was locked. No one was there. That night I barely slept. The next morning I told my wife everything. She looked nervous, but tried to laugh it off. She said it was probably the house settling or my imagination. But then she told me something that made my stomach twist. She said the baby monitor had been picking up strange noises at night, soft whispering. She thought it was just interference. That night I decided to set up a small camera in the hallway, just in case. Nothing happened for the first 2 nights, but on the third night, something did. Around 3 a.m., I woke up suddenly. No noise, no reason, just a strange feeling, like someone was watching me. I checked the baby monitor. Everything looked normal, but then I heard something. A slow creak in the hallway. I grabbed my phone and quietly opened the bedroom door. The hallway was empty, but the guest room door was open again, wider than before, almost all the way. I walked toward it, and that's when I heard it, a whisper, right behind me. "Don't turn around." I spun around instantly. No one was there. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I checked the house again. Nothing. The next morning, I checked the hallway camera footage. At first it looked normal, just an empty hallway for hours. Then around 2:47 a.m., something appeared. The guest room door slowly opened, but no one was there. About 10 seconds later, something moved in the hallway. At first I thought it was a shadow, but then it stepped into view. It was a man. Tall, thin, wearing dark clothes, but the strangest part was how he moved. His movements were slow and stiff, like someone trying to imitate how humans walk. He stood in the hallway for almost a full minute. Then he turned toward the camera. And I felt my entire body go cold, because his face looked exactly like mine. Same eyes, same hair, same beard. He stared directly into the camera. Then he slowly smiled. After that, he walked into the guest room, and the door closed. I ran into the hallway immediately after watching that. The guest room was empty. No man. No one hiding anywhere. That same day, we contacted the landlord and broke the lease. We moved out within a week. I tried to forget about it. But there's one more thing I didn't notice until months later. When I watched the footage again more carefully. When the man who looked like me first walked into frame, he wasn't coming. I never believed in ghosts. Not until the night I stayed in my grandmother's guest room. The strange part isn't what I saw in that room. It's what I realized the next morning. Because according to my grandmother, that room hasn't existed for the last 12 years, and somehow, I spent the entire night inside it. This happened last winter when I went to stay at my grandmother's house for a few days. Her house sits in a quiet village about 3 hours away from the city. It's an old 2-story home my grandfather built in the 80s. After he died, my grandmother stayed there alone. The place always felt a little eerie, especially at night. Old wooden floors, dim hallways, and rooms that smelled like dust and old furniture, but nothing about it ever felt dangerous. At least not until that night. I arrived around 7 p.m. My grandmother welcomed me with dinner and tea, and we talked for a while in the living room. Around 10 p.m., she said something that seemed normal at the time. "Your room is ready. I made the guest room for you." I'd stayed there before as a kid, so I nodded and grabbed my bag. The guest room was at the end of the hallway on the second floor. When I opened the door, everything looked the same as I remembered. A single bed, a wooden wardrobe, a small table with a lamp, and an old mirror hanging on the wall. But something about the room felt cold Not temperature cold, just uncomfortable. I brushed it off as imagination. I put my bag down and closed the door. That's when I heard the first sound. Tap. It came from the mirror. I turned toward it. Nothing, just my reflection staring back. I laughed quietly at myself and turned off the lamp to sleep. The moment the room went dark, the tapping started again. Tap, tap, tap. This time it sounded like someone gently knocking on glass. My stomach tightened. I turned the lamp back on. Silence. The mirror looked completely normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was standing behind me. I quickly turned around. The room was empty. No closet doors open. No windows. Just silence. Eventually, I forced myself to lie down and close my eyes. About an hour later, I woke up again, but I didn't know why. Then I heard it. Breathing. Slow. Heavy breathing. It wasn't coming from outside. It was inside the room. For a few seconds, I convinced myself it was my own breathing echoing in the quiet, but then it changed. The breathing moved from one side of the room to the other. My heart started racing. I slowly reached for the lamp and switched it on. The room was empty, but the mirror was fogged, like someone had just breathed directly onto the glass. My throat went dry, and then something appeared on the mirror. Words, written in the fog, 3 words. Get out now. I jumped out of bed instantly. My brain was screaming that this was impossible. No one else was in the room. The windows were shut. The door was locked. I grabbed my bag and rushed out into the hallway. The house was silent. I walked downstairs and knocked on my grandmother's door. She opened it, looking half asleep. What happened? I told her everything. The tapping, the breathing, the mirror. She stared at me with a confused expression. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. What guest room? I pointed upstairs. The one at the end of the hall? She slowly shook her head. There's no room there. I laughed nervously. Grandma, I just slept there. She grabbed a flashlight and walked upstairs with me. When we reached the hallway, I pointed forward. That one. But when the flashlight beam hit the wall, my blood turned cold. There was no door, just a solid wall. I walked forward, confused. No, it was right here. I touched the wall. It was real, painted, old, like it had always been there. I turned to my grandmother. Her face had gone pale. Then she whispered something I'll never forget. That used to be your uncle's room. I had an uncle I never met. He died before I was born. According to my grandmother, he used that room as a guest room before he passed away. But after his death, strange things started happening. Doors opening, mirrors fogging, footsteps at night, so my grandfather sealed the entire room shut. Removed the door, covered it with a wall that was 12 years ago. My heart started pounding. Then where did I sleep? Neither of us said anything, and then suddenly, from the other side of the wall, we heard it. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. My grandmother grabbed my arm. Her voice was barely a whisper. That's the same knock he used to make. I felt the blood drain from my face because the knocking didn't come from inside the room. It came from the hallway side of the wall, right where I'd been sleeping. Then I realized something that still keeps me awake at night. The knocking wasn't coming from the sealed room. It was coming from inside the wall itself, like something had been trapped there for years. And somehow, that night, it let me in. Ending twist. The next morning, my grandmother called a contractor to inspect the wall. They broke a small section open. Inside, they found something none of us expected. Not bones, not a body, just an old mirror. The same mirror I saw in the guest room, and on its fogged surface, 3 faint words: stay tonight. But the creepiest part? My grandmother swears that mirror was never inside that room, and when the workers pulled it out, they found handprints on the inside of the glass.